Well, I just got out here to the garage, just turned the heat up, so yeah, the furnace just kicked on. Today's video, I'm gonna put the vents back together and reinstall them. So these have dried overnight. You know, some of these videos are made 2 or 3 days apart, you know, between clips, because I have to wait, you know, for paint to dry and stuff on things, and you know, that's just the way it is. So I'm gonna get to putting the vents together, reinstall them, get that back in, and then I'm gonna pull the steering wheel off because I think it'll make it easier to get the column out and disassemble it. I'm gonna have to disassemble the column because I'm gonna change this component right here, and that way it'll all be right. This is, you know, this is why the shift lever was loose in there. Those holes for that roll pin are hogged out, and I think I'm going to look on eBay for a new pull lever. I did paint the black in there. I don't know if it shows up or not, but I did paint it in there just so it'll do until I can get another one. Both of these are assembled. They work nice and free. Before they were like really stiff, and now they just fall open and close. So that'll make it nice to open and close them. That's the way they should be. So let me get those reinstalled. I painted the inside of these too, so they're nice. I painted over that rubberized undercoating. That helps protect it and seal it. The rusty metal primer bites into the metal, and then the undercoating, the oil and the undercoating kind of seal in the, you know, the oil soaks into the seams and any surface rust that might be left and stops it. The rubberized undercoating holds it there, and then you can paint over the top of that undercoating without a reaction from the oils underneath it. It just kind of keeps the oils in there, and you know, just really protects it. I've had good luck doing it that way. And I did have to put a towel on the floor because there is a drain in that for when it rains. You know, the rain, that's why those rot out. The rain and dirt and leaves and debris gets down in here, builds up in the bottom of those boxes, holds the moisture. You know, it plugs up the drain, holds the moisture, and then they just rot out. And I was lucky, these ones were clean, so they continued to drain. And this car must have been garaged most of its life or kept under cover somewhere because it just wasn't full of stuff. And when I oiled it, I put a rag on the floor because it was dripping out on the floor. Well, the vents and the parking brake assemblies are back in. I'm going to leave them open, obviously, so that, you know, can get air movement in there and dry things out. And while I was at it, I just went around and painted with a brush, the bare metal around the windshield there, and you can see there's holes there. Does that show up to the outside, the light? So I put sealer on those before I put the bolts in so we don't get a water drip. But there we go. One more thing I need to do before I put the dash in is clean this up. And this is like a fiberglass reinforced cardboard. I mean, you can clearly see it's fiberglass on the inside, and it's pretty rigid, and this little tab is broken off, so I think I'm going to take some fiberglass cloth and just repair that and clean this up. I don't know what that is, just dirt, and then I'll wash this up, and I'll probably just wash the inside out and then just wipe the outside off. I don't want to get the outside wet. I just want to, but the inside's obviously fiberglass, so water and it won't hurt anything. Gave the pointer a little paint too. This video, a little clip of the video, is for Tim. He's the guy that gave me the mower deck sitting over there, the Cooper mower deck. So he's putting a parking brake warning light in his 68 Country sedan. The way this thing is wired up, he was wondering how it was wired up. This just plugs to that switch on the parking brake assembly, which just completes a circuit to ground. I think that was in my last video. That thing's already installed, so you know, you just have to look at the last video for that. But the other wire comes out of the light, goes up and across. You know, basically I ran it right where the paper showed, through all these clips with the main harness and down to the back of the ignition switch, which is 12 volts key on. And so just find your 12 volts key on if you don't have this type of ignition switch, and that goes out, the light comes on, and that is what plugs to the switch, which grounds it out, as you see in the past video of this dashboard. I think I showed it in the last video with that light blinking. So I hope that answers your question there. One other thing I didn't show is I put this headlight buzzer thing in, and that hooks to the red with a yellow tracer. That's 66. The headlights, when you turn the headlights on, the parking lights go out. So this is hooked to headlights only. If you want it to be parking lights and headlight, you hook it to the black wire. I sometimes like to turn the parking lights on with the engine off, so I opted to put it to the headlights only because I don't like to leave the headlights on when the engine's off. And then the other end goes to the positive, same terminal on the ignition switch, key on power. Basically how this works, okay, even though it's hooked here to where when it has power when headlights come on, so when the headlights are on, you have 12 volts coming into both wires into the buzzer, so no circuit, no current flows, the buzzer doesn't buzz. But when you turn the key off, it tracks, and that is powered, it tracks back through here into here and back feeds into other circuits, maybe the radio or the wiper motor, or instrument or whatever. It back feeds and traces that for ground. And if a lot of you guys talk about, oh yeah, in these cars you put the four ways or turn signal and some other things on, the radio plays. Yes, they back feed through circuits in the car and can power other things up that way. So that is not unheard of for that to happen when you back feed circuits. That's just there, and if I don't like it, it's easy to take out. It's just held on with the nut that holds the trim to the dashboard, and it's one nut that holds it on the ignition switch, which is easy access from under the dash without having to climb under this part. You just pull that bezel off that I got to do the chrome paint on, and then I put this on such to where I could, if I take that bezel off, I can pop this back off if I want to. But I just thought I would give it a try, see if it's an option I'll like, because there's been a couple of times where I've left the headlights on not realizing it when I've gone to cruises and stuff on past cars. So I just don't want to take a chance on running the battery down, so that's why I put that in. What I'm going to do here is repair this tab. There's a little tab that was here for the where this mounted to the airbox in the car, and that tab is broken off. Now it looks like there was foam tape around these edges here to seal it, so I have plenty of foam tape, and it looks like I need to put one more of these. See, there's little steel spacer things, and maybe I'll put something there to kind of bring that open back out a little bit. It's collapsed in just a little bit from the ears, where I might get a piece of dowel rod or something and put in there, but then I can clean this up. But first I want to fix this little fiberglass thing here, so I'll get to that, and then I want to get everything fixed, so when I go to put the dash in, this is all ready to go, and this actually fastens to the dash here and here. So I want to get that in before I cover all that stuff over, and I need to repair that little nub on. That's where that screw goes into, and it just kind of holds things together here. And then it looked like originally there was foam tape around there. This is the time consuming stuff, so I just kind of about 2 or 3 different layers on there. 3 actually, those are 2, and then I did one, and then with a fine cloth, and I did a hard cloth on the outside and then a hard one on the inside, and I'm going to let that dry overnight, and then I'll neatly cut it around or sand it or file it or whatever, you know, until it looks like the original tab. I'll sand this, paint it. I couldn't video doing that because I'd have sticky fiberglass all over my camera. My gloves were sticking to everything. It was just a mess. But anyway, there we go. That is, you know, getting that repaired. And this is up under the dash enough to where you don't see it, so it's not gonna, you know, matter if it looks 100% pretty or not, but it's gonna look better than what it did broken, and it's gonna function, and that's what's important. I went looking for one of these defrost ducts online, only to find every single one of them this tab was broken off or damaged that I found. And so I'm just, like I say, I'm just repairing that tab. It just kind of holds it in place against the air box, and I'm just sitting here with that happening. And I found a used one that was over 200, and that's not happening either. But basically it just has a little deflector down, so I'm going to make one out of sheet metal. It doesn't have anything that goes around. It's just basically like this, except it doesn't have this bit over here that blocks it. It's just open like this. And I'm just going to make a little, you know, kind of make it look nice and bend out. Maybe I'll fold it over on my press, tap it out, make it look nice. I got this cleaned up and that fixed, and that's really rigid. That isn't going to go anywhere. And so I'm going to paint this with this so it looks good. Paint the whole thing inside and out. And this piece will be ready to go back in. Then I'll start maybe working on that sheet metal thing. I don't video this kind of stuff, you know. I mean, it's just my hands were all covered. Well, I had gloves on, but they're all covered in this resin. And I put the resin across here just to help add a little strength to this. This, you can clearly see it's fiberglass that this is made out of, but this almost looks like a paper backing that they spread the fiberglass on. And I just wanted to make sure it was, you know, rigid there where I did the repair so it doesn't break in the future. And the original hole, I could see where the original hole started right here. And they're an elongated hole from looking at these online. And I don't know if that's too long or not. But anyway, that's the way I made it. And a little extra all the way around, so it'll give it a little extra strength. This will be fine. So I'm going to give it a paint job. That looks pretty darn good. I painted down in there, so it's all nice and painted and clean inside. So if there's any musty smells, it's gone now. This will all be hidden away up under the dash, so, you know, painting it might have been a waste of time, but you know, why not? It's out. Why not give it a shot of paint? So I'm going to make a little template to make a little metal piece for the airbox. This is what I'm going to put on here, or something like. I made it so it's about the same angle as that thing outlet there, and then the original ones, they're about even with this across, so about like that. I'm just holding it just approximately, and then that deflected the air down. And when I make it out of sheet metal, I'll bend, you know, edges over so there isn't, you know, so it's not just sharp sheet metal. I think it would look a little nicer, and if you hit it with your foot, you won't gouge it open or anything. So that's kind of, you know, all this, like, that's where that defrost duct screws on. And it all goes up here, you know, and the dash comes down to here. And you really won't see, sitting in the car, you really don't see this airbox. You got to kind of get down, lean down to see it. So I think it'll be fine. And once I paint it, I'll paint it flat black and or trim black or something to match the dashboard. Just the little metal piece. I'm not going to paint the airbox. I don't like these painted. I don't think these look good painted. That actually cleaned up nice. I wiped it down really good with lacquer thinner. Too bad that piece is broken away, because there's nothing wrong with this airbox. It's in really good shape still, so it's staying in the car. I'm I'm not spending that kind of money that people want for one of these for this. It's just not going to happen. I just traced this out on some sheet metal, and I left a little extra, and I might even, I don't know, I think that's about enough. I just want to fold that over a little bit, and I can fold it just above the line. This length, you know, I can get away with not having that as long. But I'm going to get that cut out and start bending it. That's rough cut out. I'm just going to take it over on the belt sander and round that out and just kind of square it up and make it look nice. That is ready to take over to the bender and give it a little bendy. Hammered it over, you know, just gave it a bend and a hammer over so there's no, you know, I don't want anything sharp there, and that feels pretty good. So now I got to make a mark so I can bend it across there. So I'll make a mark here and here. I think it's right about there and there, but I can't hold the camera and do it at the same time, so I'll get a mark and I'll put it in the bender. And I'll be blast it and paint it. It'll be ready to glue in. I bent this so it has the same bend as this piece up here. So I assume that, you know, I'm assuming. And then that will adhere there. And once it's painted black, glued on there, that's going to look fine, do the dot job just fine. I mean, this is a little different material here, and I don't think that'll detract from it a heck of a lot. That looks a lot better sitting in the car looking at that than that hole that was busted in there from, that's, you know, the air conditioning unit was jammed up against that. And I just stuck that on there with a little bit of that panel adhesive. That stuff seems to bond pretty well. So I thought, why not give it a try there? I think it'll be fine. That definitely will do the job, you know, when you have your feet here and it's cold and you want to warm them up. Although I doubt this car will be driven in that kind of weather, but it's definitely going to help. Okay, so next is I'm going to start pulling that steering column out so I can do up all that, paint that up, paint the column, change that collar. And I've been waiting on some speedometer cable lube. I have some. You think I can find it? No. So I ordered some more so I can find my old stuff. I'm sure as soon as the new stuff comes, I will find the stuff I have. You know, that's Murphy's Law, right? As long as we're talking about it, panel adhesive, did I show this? Yeah, that works now. Works nicely. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I think that panel adhesive is going to work great on that. Really happy with the way that came out and works. There really isn't any way to video this. I tried to put a light down in here. You can see, but I'm taking out these bolts. This one here, then there's some nuts that hold this plate and that plate to the firewall. Those need to come off. Take the shift linkage off, and then the rest of the, and take this off so this rag coupler comes free from the steering gear. And then I'll show you what needs to be done from the inside. Yeah, this would have been a whole lot easier to do when the engine was out, but it's not now. And so I'm just going to show you what I'm doing here. So to get to those bolts, if you look, see these right here? There's 3 here and 2 down here. Those have to be undone from the engine compartment. I got to take that wire, goes just to the neutral safety switch right here. It's just a ground. But I got to get that plate loose so that the steering column comes through that hole. There isn't enough room, you know, and I don't want to damage that rubber, so I got to take that off. To get to that, you have to take this off. To get this off, you have those little metal push-in things like these. And the one over here wasn't pushed through. In fact, the hole isn't even drilled through there, so I don't even know why it was there. And the one here, I destroyed the thing pulling it out, but I actually have some more, so I can replace it. From when I worked in the Ford dealer, we had those when I'd have to do stuff like this. So let me get that stuff unbolted, and once all that, most of the stuff's under the hood. Obviously, you already saw I took the collar off, took the the bushing. There's that plastic bushing in here. I already took all that apart, so I don't need to, you know, this is just loose. I can just undo those nuts and drop the column down, but to get it free from the firewall is a chore. It would have been a lot easier to do while the engine and power brake booster and stuff was out, but it's not now, so now I gotta fight with it. So there's no videoing getting that apart. There's nowhere I can put the camera. The lighting's poor in there. I can barely reach in there, but I just wanted to show you what you need to do to get the column out of the car. It's a bit of work, but you know, it'll take me probably half hour, 45 minutes. Well, 2 hours later, I got this up. These are the components that bolt to the firewall and bolt together to hold the steering column in the dash. And then these bolts here go through a plate inside the car, and they're just they started turning in those. They're just, you know, they're not meant to be undone again. They're meant to be put on the assembly line and never touched again. I'm just gonna go around and weld all these so I don't have to deal with them again. And so I'm going to set these aside so I can weld them. These are all the tools I used. I had to literally, you can see where I, you know, literally try and pry them out enough to where I can get this on it. And then I put my little impact on it with a long extension and a 1/2-inch socket. I just used a regular, I didn't use impact because sockets and stuff, because that's fairly light duty tool. This is 3/8 drive. And I turned the pressure, you know, the torque down on it. But these were the nuts that I was undoing. These are all on here. There's still one of the nuts under the car somewhere. I'll find it eventually. This held the shift linkage to the column. This is what holds that pad to the firewall there that I showed you. The one clip kind of got messed up. These two bolts were the bolts that went through here, and this is what holds the steering column to the steering gear. And this was just a wiring harness thing. So I used 1/2-inch with a long extension, 3/8. I didn't really use this, but I had it out. I used that to break a couple of them loose. My ratcheting wrench, pair of pliers to undo this clip. This to undo these, which were inside the car, screwing the metal plate to the firewall and holding the ground strap on. So basically the steering column, I'm going to pull a steering wheel before I pull it out of the car. But yeah, the steering column is completely ready to come out of the car. This is that plate I was talking about. It's going to require some straightening from having to bash, or you know, to bend it around to get the vice grips on those bolts. It was just a nightmare. This is that ground wire I had to take off that was attached to some of these. You can see where those little 5/16 head screws were on that, maybe. But I'll get it out and show you when we get it into some more light. But there we go. I'm gonna get the steering wheel off next, and just pull a column out. So I got to undo that nut, put my puller on it, and the column or the wheel is off. I'm going to take the steering wheel off, obviously, before I pull a column. And I took that nut off there. It was a 15/16, and I thread these in as far as I can get them to go, so I don't pull the threads out of the steering wheel. And then I loosen or tighten, usually loosen one because they're in all the way, until that pushes center on the steering shaft. And just turn that, and the steering wheel is off. So it's pretty simple to get the steering wheels off these old cars. And now the column, I undo these two, and that column will lift right out, but I'm going to use two hands, and the shifter is not hooked to anything anymore, so this thing just goes all over heck. But yeah, so we'll get this thing out. I think that's the light for that illuminates this, and we'll replace the bulb in there just as preventative maintenance, so I don't have to pull a column again. These are the horn contacts, turn signal switch. Pretty cut and dry, simple. So I'll have to take that snap ring off so I can get this collar off and get that. I'll have to take all this apart anyway to clean it up and paint it, and the wiring harness will have to slide out too, so I may have to take all those pin connectors out of this plastic thing so it slides up in there. There's usually just little tabs you straighten out a little bit, and these pin connectors come out of the plastic plug. Just take a photo or write down, draw a picture, do whatever, so you know you get the right wires in the right holes when you put it back together. Yeah, be a little difficult to drive the car now, wouldn't it? Steering column is out. I'm going to put the wheel probably in the trunk, but yeah, that'll make it easier to put the dash in. I'll take these out. These just unscrew, and take that way, you know, when I put the dash in, I'm not fighting around these. And again, like I say, I want to lubricate this before I put the dash in too, and I want to get the pad on. So let me continue on here. Oh, and I found a better pull handle, fairly cheap. It's a used one, but it doesn't have any those like damage spots on it like on the top there, so I'll change that when I get it. I did find one, so I guess I don't need one now. This video has been over like 3 days. And there's the steering column. So I'll start on this after I get the dash back in. So many things torn apart at once is enough. But that way this will clean up and paint up nice, you know, it'll look good. And yet now you can really see how hogged out. Maybe not. But both sides are, you can really see it from this side here inside the, well, let me get a light, maybe that'll help. Yeah, I don't know if this is gonna show it up or not, but that hole down in there, it didn't, the pin didn't go all the way through, and it's just like really elongated bad. And this one's pretty elongated and hogged out too, but that bottom one is really, really bad. But when you look at it from underneath here, it looks good, but that's only just like paper thin. I could probably push that out with my finger and it would be all hogged out in there. So that's why the shift lever was loose, and that's why I got another one of these collars to put on it. I straightened this piece up. I had to clamp the vice grips on several of them, and I had to take a screwdriver and kind of pry them to get them out enough to get a vice grip grabbed onto it. If you don't have to take your steering column out, I'd highly recommend not doing it. Took me, let's see, 2.5 hours to get these bolts out. You know, I'm trying to do this by myself. I finally went in and got somebody to help me, but yeah, it's a lot of work. So anyway, this is all straightened up. I'm going to throw them in my bead blast cabinet along with those two pieces and get these pieces cleaned up and painted up, and then the paint can start drying, and then I'll start on the dash pad maybe in the next day or two, get the dash back in, and the start turning the steering column. Yeah, it looks pretty stripped out, doesn't it? Yeah, not much left in there, but it's you know, it's making progress. It may not look like it. It may look like we're going backwards, but we are going forward. And you know, I have the time. It's winter, so winter project. I thought, why not take it apart, do it? I have the time. You know, it's what else am I going to do in this cold winter? Might as well work on the car. You know, I enjoy doing it, so why not take things apart and make them really nice and look good, right? So let me get these pieces blasted up and painted. pair of pliers is in the trunk of the Galaxy when I bought it, and that's what I use them for, in the blast cabinet, just to hold parts, you know, so I don't have to blast the gloves if I'm holding a small part. I get asked all the time, so I'm going to point it out right now. What I run in this is 80 grit glass beads. Those are little tiny glass beads, and that works pretty good. It is a Clark abrasive cabinet. There's the model number. I like this cabinet. I run it at 60 psi with the trigger pulled, so it's about 70 without the trigger pulled. This is what I run in the cabinet. I keep the extras for the cabinet in that bucket. I just save one of these buckets for the extras, but that's what's in it. It says 5 gallons of beads in there. The pickup's in the bottom there, and so I put 2 5-gallon pills in there. It seems to work better. It doesn't get that spitting purging that you get when it gets low and starts spitting out of the nozzle, not blasting consistently. That's when I know I need to add a bucket of abrasive, and I rarely ever, in fact, I don't think I've ever drained it and refilled it, because the vacuum right there sucks the smashed glass dust out. And I put a drywall bag in the shop vac, and it's starting to get heavy, because that keeps the dust mostly out of the motor. That's been there for 10 years, still works good. That's my dust collector, so to speak, but you've got to use a drywall bag in them, otherwise they'll ruin your vacuums all the time. So just a little on the blast cabinet if anyone's interested. And this stuff cleaned up right quick and easy. I'll take it out and blow a can of, spray some Rust-Oleum black on it. I think I'll use a semi-gloss, and I'll clean up all the fasteners and stuff in the blast cabinet and paint them too. Just, you know, why it's apart, and that way these threads all the threads will be clean. Things will thread together quicker and easier. It'll just be easier to assemble it. It was a pain to disassemble it because, you know, paint was on the threads and rust, and, you know, I tried to oil the threads, but yeah, they still bound up. But I got them undone. It's apart, as you can see. This is what I use to paint those bits that are hanging there, and they're buried in the engine compartment and under the carpet. You don't see them really at all. I mean, you gotta really, really look if you want to see them. And but why not clean them up and paint them while things are apart? So that's all painted up nice and pretty. And so is that. That is the bottom. That goes below the steering column against the firewall, and this goes above the steering column. And these are behind, this is behind the power brake booster. So yeah, that was a real joy to get at. But it's out, cleaned and painted. Yeah, I was able to worm this off, and the spring goes around the seal here to hold it against the steering column. But I think to get man, look at how nasty dirty that is. It just needs a good cleaning up. The rubber's in really good shape. It's super dirty. So I may have to take the steering shaft out of the column to get this rubber off. But when we take that apart to change that shift collar, you know, I'd be able to take this out and do that. I gotta get the neutral switch off so I don't damage that, and I want to mark it where it is so I can kind of get it back to where it originally was. It works pretty good right there. This little part is plastic chrome also, so I'm going to paint that when I paint that bezel on the dash with that same paint with my little airbrush. I'll get this off when I get this apart and get it all cleaned up and ready for paint, because I think that'll dress that up. You can totally tell it was chrome, and it is plastic, there's no doubt about that. And I don't know of anywhere locally other than, well, there is out by our airport, but yeah, it's kind of, I don't want to spend the kind of money they want to plate something that simple and easy that I'll just make it look nice. That'll do. I was kind of deciding what I want to do next on the car. I think I'm going to call it a day so I can go in and do some editing. That's what I'm going to do next. So you guys have a video to watch. And tomorrow, I think I'll run to the hardware and get some new contact cement. The stuff I have is a couple years old, and I'm just going to get a brand new quart of it, you know, with a brush. And I'm going to do it exactly the way Ford did it. And so I think probably tomorrow or the next day I'll work on installing the dash pad, and then we'll get the dash back in the car. And then I'll tear into the steering column and get that done up so I can put it back in. I'm calling it a day. If you like the video, definitely hit the like button, share it, do whatever you can to get it more views. Anything is appreciated. And if you like my channel, want to see that dashboard in the car and the steering column all done up and back in the car, hit that 348 engine icon that pops up and I'll subscribe to you to my channel. And thank you for watching my videos.